Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're comparing a 2022 Ram 1500 Laramie to a 2022 Chevy Silverado 1500 LTZ. Now the two trucks that I picked out for today's comparison are pretty close in terms of pricing, so this should be a pretty solid comparison overall. Now, before we get in the video, I do want to mention if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. With that being said, let's get into the comparison. So starting under the hood of the Silverado, this particular one has the Duramax diesel, but the two most common engines you'll see under the hood of the LTZ are either the 5.3 V8 or the 6.2 V8. The 5.3 has 355 horsepower and 383 pound-feet of torque, whereas the 6.2 has 420 horsepower and then 460 pound-feet of torque. Both go through 10-speed automatic transmissions, but tons of engine options for the Silverado. Same thing with the Ram, right? The most common engine you'll see here is the 5.7 Hemi V8 that this one has. It's good for 395 horsepower and then 410 pound-feet of torque. You will see some Ram Laramies with the Eco Diesel as well, and very, very few with the V6. But going from that to the front end of the Silverado, you can see here with the LTZ, this one is finished in bright blue. Got the Duramax badge there on the side. If you get the 6.2 V8, it'll say 6.2L there on the side. Notice here with the LED headlights and then the daytime running lights. And then you can see with the black accenting chrome bumpers, right? Because again, it's the luxury package with the parking sensors there on the front end. Tow hooks down below as well. And then you guys can see here with the rest of the front grille how that's all finished in chrome. You got the Chevy bow tie, and yeah, definitely good looking truck. Now Laramie has a very similar theme, so notice it's got the 1500 Hemi E torque badge there on the side, and then notice here with the daytime running lights and then the LED headlights. So both of them have LED headlights and tons of chrome. Got fog lights down there with the parking sensors, tow hooks on the front end, just like the Silverado. Everything's, kind of more rounded off here with the Ram, but again, similar theme in terms of having a bunch of chrome there on the front end to signify it's a luxury truck. Now, popping here to the side of the LTZ, you can see there with the silver on the wheels, which I think looks great. Now, this one has a Z71 package, still has 20-inch wheels, but we've got slightly more aggressive tires, and then it does have Rancho shocks as part of that Z71 package. Two-tone mirrors with chrome there on the top, as you can see. And then you got the chrome there for the door handles as well. And then you can see here from a full side perspective. Definitely, looks good. Again, has that more like boxy, squared off design though. So Chevy's kind of kept that stylistic cue with their trucks. Leaf springs there on the rear, and you can see the Rancho shocks. In terms of payload, I noticed on average the Silverados seem to have a slightly higher payload than the Ram trucks. Now, popping here to the side of the Laramie, there's a bunch of different wheel options for the Laramie. What I usually see on most Laramies is going to be the 20-inch wheels. Is kind of what is most common. Anyways, you can see there with the fender flares, those are body painted. Notice the Ram logo. Side steps on this one. And then you can see there with the chrome trailer mirrors, and there's some chrome accent there on the door handles. And notice how everything, there is some, straight lines obviously on the side, but everything's kind of more rounded off with the Ram. And then popping to the rear, wheel house liners. And then the big difference is, again, we've got 5-link coil suspension here in the back end of the Ram. So different suspension setup than what you have in the Silverado. Notice with the key fob, we got the tailgate drop down. And also you can see here with the bed, you've got the protection on it, which is great, so you don't have to worry about scraping paint. LED bed lights with the full power outlet. Like I said, I've noticed on average, it seems like the Silverados have a slightly higher payload than the Rams, but towing capacity is less. So most Silverados are right around 9,000 pounds with the towing capacity, whereas it depends on the axle ratio you get with the Rams, but I usually see the Rams with the 3.92 axle ratio, and we'll talk about that in a second, but notice with the multi-pro tailgate here, and it's hard to get that folded back up. It kind of makes the tailgate heavier. But anyways, you can see here with the taillights and then the logos here on the back. Notice again, chrome with the accenting. Got Chevy's bumper steps, which I think are fantastic. More parking sensors down there with the kind of like squished exhaust tip coverings, which are definitely unique. And then there's a better look there at the Rancho shocks. And yeah, overall, it's a good looking truck from a rear end perspective, a little bit more boxy from a design perspective. I noticed key fob has the same functions with tailgate drop down, remote start, all that. And continuing on that conversation of towing capacity. So the Rams with the 3.92 axle ratio and the 5.7 Hemi tow like over 10,000 pounds. If you get like the lower down package, you're like over 11,000 pounds of your towing capacity. And so it's kind of strange that the Rams on average seem to have lower payload capacities, but then they have higher towing capacities than the Silverado. I think that's interesting. And you guys can see this one doesn't have bed liner. And then notice here at the LED lights there, and the Laramie logo. And this is another thing I want to mention about the Ram trucks versus the Silverados. Almost every single Silverado I've reviewed has a bed liner in it, whereas almost every single Ram I reviewed doesn't. So I think that's interesting, the two different kind of ways that manufacturers go about that. This one has the white paint with the metallic flake, which is definitely a good looking color. It doesn't look the best on camera necessarily, but in person it's a lot better. But we've got the new door panel here with the Silverado. So you got the wood trim, then the padding down below with the stitching that goes throughout. You can see one of the speakers for the Bose sound system. And then here is the headrest in the rear. Notice here, perforated there in the center with the behind-the-seat storage. I think that's one of the coolest things with the new Silverados, that behind-the-seat storage. The seats didn't change all that much with this new Silverado. It's mostly like the door panel in the back. Heated seats, though, for the rear passengers. You got some charging ports. And very weird window sticker that doesn't have any window sticker information on it because it's just a shipping sticker. And going from that to the rear of the Ram, you can see tons of padding here on the side, similar to the Silverado, but it seems like they've got a little bit more with the Ram. And you got the suede insert, wood trim, and then one of the speakers for the sound system. And then you can see here with these seats, notice again with the leather and then the suede inserts and then perforated. So a little bit of a different kind of design theme. I will say that the Ram seats, in my opinion, they look a little bit nicer, but with that suede, they are going to be slightly more difficult to clean off with like dirt and stuff, but these are luxury trucks, so who's actually going to take them off-road, right? And then down below, you can see the charging ports and then the full power outlet, and then notice the wood trim there at the top. In terms of space in the back seating area of both of them, it's very spacious with either truck, so you're fine there. And then here's the wood trim at the top. And you can see again with the silver trim and then double stack armrest, all of your window controls, and then the mirror adjustments, memory seats, and then there's a quick look at the mirrors. They've got blind spot monitoring, and then another speaker for the Bose sound system. I love how it has that like kind of boomerang design. And then here is the front seat. So again, notice perforated there in the center portion. And then you've got your power adjustments on the side of the seat, pedal layout down below. And then notice we've got our drive line select and our drive mode select for the tow haul mode select. And then we've got the light controls right there. Steering wheel adjustment, and then the heads-up display adjustment. And popping back over to the Ram, notice the front door panel looks identical to the rear in terms of that design with the leather padding and the suede inserts and then the wood trim, all of your window controls, memory seats. And this one has the trailer tow mirrors. They still fold in now for 22, which is great. Or power fold in is what I meant to say. And I think that's definitely a nice upgrade that they've added to the Ram trucks. And then here are the front seats. Notice I love the headrest, how you can just like move it easily. Now it says Laramie, definitely nice looking seats. Then you got your power adjustments there on the side, Ram logo, pedals down below, and then you got your parking brake pedal adjustment, light controls with the fog light and the cargo light. Steering wheel is manually adjustable instead of power adjustable like in the Chevy, so that's definitely a key difference. You can see here with the little startup animation with the Silverado, we've got the full digital gauge cluster. We'll kind of dive more into that in just a moment. But notice there with the stitching the center steering wheel, we got the plastic paddle shifters there with the radio controls on the back. And then we do have our heated steering wheel button with the cruise control, turn signal, windshield wiper stock, and, pretty normal setup for a steering wheel. Got the new full digital gauge cluster. I think GM did a really good job with this gauge cluster. Not only from like a resolution standpoint, but just how user-friendly it is. Because you just have that center screen that just has the information right there. And then you have the drive mode select, and it shows that off to the side. And I don't know, it's just one of the more simple designs. Now with the diesel exhaust brake pops on and off if you're in tow haul mode or not, which is kind of interesting. There isn't like a button for it that I've been able to find. Heads-up display, as you can see, another nice little feature. And then here's the new infotainment system. So first off, from a camera perspective, you guys know I'm definitely a huge fan of what Chevy's done with their camera system. You have a full 360 camera view. It's on a very large screen, great resolution, and you have shots of like everything on the truck. So it makes parking the truck super simple, and especially if you live in a rural place, you can spot yourself with different little off-road obstacles. And so I think that it's a camera system that every single truck maker needs to have. And then you've got shortcut buttons there on the side. You've got the main screen. Response time is fantastic. Still have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And then you have the auxiliary screen off to the side, which you can scroll through a few different menus. So it seems like they kind of copied Ford a little bit on that one. But that's okay because it's a great system. And then notice it's got double down on the home screen buttons. Anyways, lane departure, you got your parking sensors, auto stop, start, tailgate, drop down, hazard lights as well, stability control, and then like your hill descent control. And then you've got the button to basically roll down all the windows at once. More wood trim, and you'll see that throughout. And then you can see here with the trailer brake controls, and then notice dual zone climate controls, heated cooled seats in the LTZ, because again, it is a luxury truck. Got some extra storage space right there. Couple cup holders, and we've got the new shifter. So some people have complained about this because it does rob space in the center console area. But here's what I have to say is I'm not a fan of column shifters. They're kind of like weird and jiggly, and it's hard to tell which gear you're in. You have to like look. Whereas this, it feels good and it's easier to use. And I don't know, I'm okay with having less space and having a shifter there. That's just my opinion. Wireless phone charger, and then you can see with the extra storage space right there. And then notice there with the padding on top of the center console. And we have our dual glove box situation. Definitely looks great. Notice the padding there on the front of the glove box is perforated, and then you've got the rest of the padding there on the dash. And then popping up top, we do have just a regular sunroof here with this Silverado, and then power sliding window. And then you can see the controls for that. And then we have the camera mirror system, which I'm a huge fan of that from a safety tech perspective. And going from that to the window sticker here for the LTZ. Again, this one has the Duramax. From what I've seen, the 6.2 V8's a higher cost option than the Duramax. And then the 5.3, I think, is pretty close in terms of pricing to the Duramax diesel. So you guys can see the total price there, though, $64,000. So coming back to the Ram. As you can see a little Laramie animation right there. Here's the steering wheel. You've got the nice padding there around the steering wheel. And notice we've got our cruise control, gear limiter. We've got our voice command phone controls for the center stack radio controls there on the back. And then you guys can see the turn signal windshield wiper stock. And definitely a cool setup. And then notice here with the gauge cluster, half analog, half screen. So, you know, it definitely has more of like an old school appearance, but I think it still works with the fit and finish they've done with the materials and the gauges. It has a nice look from a stylistic perspective. And that center screen, again, is just as easy to use. Now here's the 12-inch display. It's got a horizontal, setup here in the dash, and it is more integrated than what you have with the Silverado in terms of how it looks. Now it's got parking sensors right there, stability control, tow haul mode, trailer brake controls. And then popping into reverse, resolution on the camera system is great, but it just doesn't have the same size because it doesn't take up as much of the screen. And this one doesn't have a 360 camera system with this specific Laramie that we're comparing to the Silverado in today's video. Notice dual zone climate, heated cooled seats, heated steering wheel. And if you guys can hear my cats in the background on the audio, don't worry, they're just having a good time. They always decide to do that every single time I record audio for videos. That's just my luck. But anyways, yeah, dual zone climate. I don't like how the new climate control system is in the 12-inch display. This is new for 22. It's kind of, as you can see, it works sometimes, but you have to really get your finger on the screen, and I don't know, it's just not as easy to use as the previous system. As for the rest of the 12-inch display, though, response time's great with the buttons. You got shortcut buttons there at the bottom, and it's easy to use. It's just the climate controls that aren't easy to use, but the rest of the screen's great. And you have a bunch of different apps and everything, and you got shortcut buttons to everything. So overall, they did a good job with the infotainment system. Now here is the dial shifter, which obviously frees up space in the truck. And then you guys can see you've got, just like the Silverado, you've got 4-wheel high and 4-wheel auto, which is important. And you got auto stop start if you can turn that function off. And we have the USBs there. And you can see the full outlet, got the phone holder. And then this one has the sliding center console, which is probably the coolest console in the truck industry right now. Again, having that dial shifter means that you've got the full center console to use, and it's great from a storage space perspective. And you got padding there on the dash, dual glove box, which is kind of more normal in terms of how the top one opens. And then popping up to the top, we do have a power sliding rear window. No sunroof or anything like that. But lighter colored headliner. And then here's the window sticker, so you guys can see the base price before options are added to the Laramie. And this one does have a 392 axle ratio, so this one's going to have a higher towing capacity than that Silverado, even if the Silverado had the 6.2 V8. But you can see the total MSRP there, $62,855. So this is a little bit less expensive. Now, if we did, comparable engines, in terms of like the highest engine you can get with both trucks, if we did 6.2 V8 Silverado, and then, obviously this one has the 5.7 Hemi, then this one, right, still would be $62,000, and that Silverado would probably be just slightly more. But if we look at this comparison, that Silverado did have more options than this Ram, because that Ram was missing a sunroof like what the Silverado had, camera mirror, heads-up display. Those are just a couple things that you can option on a Ram that this particular Laramie didn't have, and if the Laramie did have those options, then it would be as expensive as the Silverado. So the trucks are actually very similar in terms of pricing, priced options. Basically, they're very competitive with each other in today's market. But here's what I have to say in terms of my kind of like final thoughts with the comparison between these two packages on the trucks. So first off, from an exterior aesthetics perspective, everything's more rounded off with the Ram, whereas the Silverado, it's kind of got that boxier design. So it's just going to depend which design language you like more. I like the fact that every single Silverado I've reviewed so far has had a bed liner. And I wish that, I wish that Ram would make it maybe less expensive or something to get a bed liner, or make it standard. I think it should just be standard at this point for pickup trucks. Again, just my personal opinion on that. And then moving from that to an engine perspective, you guys know 6.2 V8. I love that engine, so I think the Silverado definitely has the edge there from an engine perspective. And then popping to the interiors, the new Silverado interior is a huge improvement. Definitely has a techier feel, feels a lot more modern. I do think the seats on the Ram look a little bit nicer. From a door panel perspective, I don't know, 6s for me. I like both door panels on both of the trucks. The Ram usually has the Alpine sound system. In the Laramie, you can get the Harman Kardon. The Alpine sound system and the Bose sound system, though, I feel like they're pretty similar in terms of quality and all that. And then if we go to a driving and performance perspective, I do like Ram's coil suspension. Silverado is very smooth. Just leaf springs, once you go over a big enough bump, that's where you can feel them. They feel kind of annoying. But when you're just on smooth pavement, both of them are very smooth and comfortable. And then if you have a Ram with a 392 axle ratio like that Laramie had, it feels pretty much as peppy as the 6.2 V8, because typically with the 6.2, they just pair it with a 3.23 axle ratio. And so there is definitely that. If the Silverado had like a 373 or a, 392 for the axle ratio, or even a 410, obviously the fuel economy wouldn't be as good, but man, it would punch off the line with how much power it has. And so, yeah, I mean, overall, super competitive now. And so since Silverado has a much nicer interior, since the Silverado, rather, gosh, can't do English sometimes, has a much nicer interior now. And, again, the pricing is right in line with both the trucks. It's a tough choice. And so choosing which luxury truck to go for in today's market is definitely difficult. There's pros and cons to both of them. And so I want you guys to let me know which truck you prefer.